One of the things that's true about all of us, and it doesn't matter if you're a follower of Jesus or not, this is just true for everybody. It's true for me, it's true for you. We are all on what I would call a happiness quest in life. We are not on a truth quest. Now, all of us like to say we care about the truth and we want the truth, and that sounds really good. But in reality, if we get a choice between truth and happiness and we can only pick one, we're picking happiness every time. This is just how we are in what we do. We're on happiness quest. We're looking for happiness moments in life. We're making happiness decisions in life. We're spending happiness money. Some of you are really good at that, spending happiness money. I think that'll make me happy. I'm going to buy it. We're trying to pursue happiness relationships. We're taking happiness vacations and going on happiness adventures. I mean, so much, we don't think of it this way, but so many of the decisions and things we do in life are driven by, I think that'll make me happy, so I'm going to do it. And I'm not bringing that up because it's a problem to be solved. There's nothing wrong with that. However, if you have lived life long enough, you know that in your pursuit of happiness, eventually life throws enough disappointment and discontentment your way that what at one point made you happy is now making you unhappy. In other words, your chasing after happiness just stops working to some extent eventually. And it gets really frustrating. Part of the thing that creates some of that frustration, I think, is as you get older, the routine or the monotony, the mundane elements of life start to catch up with you. Now, when you're really young, there's so many new things coming that you don't feel this very much. But as you start to get older, what happens? You're in school and you wake up every single morning and it's just school and then school and then school, and it's like school forever, And you remember this, you can't wait to get out of school. You're just so sick of school. And you're certain the minute you can get out of school, you're going to be happier. So you get out of school and you get a job and you're really pumped for about 3 days. And then you realize, maybe school wasn't so bad. Because every morning you wake up, it's job, every single day. Job, it just on and on and on. And you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm going to do. Because they're telling you, hey, congratulations, this is for the next 45 years of your life. Job, So you're trying to figure out, well, what do I do to be happy then? And some of you, not everybody, but some of you, eventually as you're in the middle of trying to figure that out, you realize, I know what'll make me happy again. I'm going to get married. And that's amazing, for about 6 months. You're not supposed to laugh if you're by your spouse. I hope that was single people laughing because eventually you start waking up every morning and it's like, I'm married again today and I've got a job again today. And some of you weren't real smart. I'm one of those and thought, the way they'll fix all this is to have some kids. And that only takes about 2 nights, and you're like, oh no. Am I going to only get an hour and a half of sleep for the rest of my life? And it's like kids, every single, you wake up every morning, it's kids, and then job, and then kids, and you're like, I am married too. I forgot about that. It can get rough. Now, if you're in high school, you don't know what I'm talking about yet, but you're going to get there. I'm sorry. That's the depressing part of the message. But I'll tell you what happens for all of us. What happens for all of us is in this routine, in this cycle of, oh my gosh, I'm doing it again. Oh, it's so boring, it's so mundane, it's the same thing over and over. In this cycle, there is a question that always surfaces for us. This is true for all human beings. There's a question that always surfaces that gets beyond what we do when we're younger, or where are we going, and who am I going to be with, and who's he, and who's she? I kind of like to know, all of that kind of stuff, what are we going to do next? I mean, that's all exciting at the beginning. But there's a question that begins to trump all that. And it's the question of, wait a minute, why? Why am I here? Why am I doing all this? And what's the point of all of this? And whenever that question comes to the surface, you need to know you have just bumped into the issue of purpose. Now, this is a great thing, except what I have discovered over the years is the idea of purpose and the question of why creates so much uneasiness and uncertainty in us that most of us choose to avoid it instead of wrestling it to the ground. Because this is a hard question to answer. And for many of us, we're afraid, what if I go trying to figure out why I'm here and what my purpose is, and I discover I don't have one? Or what if I go trying to figure this out and I don't like the answer? I discover I have a purpose that I'm not even excited about. There's so much uneasiness that comes with the uncertainty of this question. that many of us avoid it entirely. And instead, we try to distract ourselves with a new happiness quest, another happiness quest. And we decide, oh, well, the whole problem here is I just need another job. I'm just bored with this job. So I'll go get a new job, a better job, a different job. In some cases, not to get too personal, but it's like, oh, I think the problem is that boyfriend, that girlfriend, that spouse, that partner, no, that's the problem. I think I need a new one. I think I need to trade them in for somebody different. I think I'm going to figure out how to send the kids to the grandparents more. It's just everything's like, I need new. I got to have a new place to live. I need a new city to live in. And we start trying to work around this question and the uneasiness that comes from it. We try to solve our frustration in a way that actually doesn't solve the frustration. Now, the reason I know that is just because in my line of work, I get an opportunity to hear a lot of stories from a lot of people. And I'll tell you one of the common denominators I've heard over the years. Whenever people try to avoid the purpose question, the why am I here question, and instead they try to chase on a new happiness quest or pursue a new happiness relationship or spend some more happiness money, what they always end up with, this is always true, what they always end up with are debts and regrets. That is the outcome of trying to solve this problem by finding more happiness. They end up with more debts because they've spent more money or chased more happiness things than they could afford. In some cases, they end up with debts because now they've got alimony payments and child support payments, and it's just wrecked their financial world, or it's put a ton of stress on it. And they end up with all of these regrets, relational regrets. Regrets because in the pursuit of happiness, they forgot to prioritize the people who actually should have mattered most to them. And when you end up in that spot, it's not because being happy was a bad thing. It's because you tried to avoid the why am I here question that was at the heart of everything. And that's what we're going to talk about for the next few minutes. So this is week 3 of the series we've been in called The Surprising View That God Has of You. And I've told you every week we've got 2 goals for this series. One is to help you see yourself the way God sees you, because I've got a feeling many of us don't see ourselves accurately. The way we view ourselves and the way we describe ourselves or think of ourselves is different than the way God does. So part of the goal of this series is to help you begin to see how Jesus sees you and to find his purpose for you. And then the second goal is for those of us who call Journey home, it's for us to understand just how important it is to create the kind of place here, to create the kind of space that makes it simple for people to connect with Jesus and simple for them to understand how he sees them. Because this is true for all of us, isn't it? Oftentimes, you can't fully grasp how God views you until you experience someone else treat you and see you that way. And when somebody who follows Jesus can show you what Jesus sees in you, then you begin to understand it for yourself. So, today we're going to circle back to this purpose question. Jesus had a lot to say about this. He actually had a collection of famous teachings that you probably have heard of if you know much about the accounts of his life. You've heard them referred to as the Sermon on the Mount. But it's a collection of teachings that Jesus would often teach to different groups of people wherever he traveled. And the Sermon on the Mount, the best way to explain it is a collection of teachings where Jesus was trying to help us understand our place and our purpose in the story he's writing in the world. He was just trying to help us understand and answer the question, why am I here? Why am I here? And he does that throughout the entire teaching. I'm going to show you just a little bit of it today. But it's a little section of the teaching where Jesus was so clear about, this is how I see you. This is how I want you to see yourself. So here's how he starts. He begins by saying, you are the light of the world. Now, you have to understand, he is teaching this to a group of Jewish people who are everyday, ordinary, no extraordinary influence kind of people. These are a group of people who, when you looked at them, you would thought, okay, well, they're not special. I mean, they don't have any political influence. They don't really have any financial influence. These are just common, everyday Jewish men and women. And no doubt when they heard him say this, that you are the light of the world, their first thought was probably, well, wait a minute, Jesus. We've heard you say, I am the light of the world. In other words, Jesus, you've identified yourself as the light of the world. which makes sense to us if you're showing up to, kind of put a light on things and show us the way to live and how to, align with God's design for our lives and how to have a relationship with him. Okay, well, that makes sense, but we're not the light of the world. And Jesus was going, yes, 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 you are. I'm the light of the world, and you're the light of the world too. You're the light of the world if you follow me, because now you represent me. Because now the light that I bring is in you, is with you. It's your responsibility now as much as it is mine. And I'm telling you, when they heard this, they would have thought, this is crazy, because we're nobodies. Jesus, if you want to find somebody who's the light of the world, maybe you should go to Rome. Emperor Tiberius is over there, and he and those Roman elites, they seem to have it going on. They seem to be the light of the world. They're certainly controlling everything in the world. You're in the wrong spot. We don't even have our freedom. We're under Roman occupation. We're just everyday people. And I think we can relate to that sentiment, can't we? I mean, the easiest way to think about this is use your imagination. Let's say that tomorrow I show up where you work or I show up where you go to school. Imagine if I walked up to you and said, hey, Eric, what are you doing here? I just came to remind you, you're the light of this place, so don't forget that. You would think to yourself, and some of you know me well enough, you would actually say to me, you're an idiot, Matt. I don't know what you're doing here. You're an idiot. I'm not the light of this place. I'm just trying to pass this test, or I'm just trying to get this job done. Not the light of the world. But I'm telling you, if Jesus were here, he would walk into your school, into your workplace, wherever you're going to be tomorrow, and he would say, hey, don't forget, you're the light of this place. Now, in just a minute, I'm going to explain to you what he means by that, what it means to be the light. But Jesus knew we weren't going to be so quick to embrace this idea, and so he uses a couple metaphors to try to help us come to grips, to come to terms with the fact that if you follow him, you really are a light wherever you go. Here's the first metaphor he used. He looks at him next and he says, a town that's built on a hill cannot be hidden. Now, the word that Jesus uses, translated built here, is not like what a contractor does. The word actually meant, he was saying a town that is strategically and sovereignly, divinely set on a hill cannot be hidden. Jesus was insinuating that you are where you are because God has strategically placed you there for a purpose. You are where you are for a reason. I'm not saying he caused everything that caused you to be there, but he has a purpose for you in the middle of whatever you're going through, wherever you are. Which, can we just be honest, if this is true, that's really frustrating for some of you, isn't it? It's really frustrating because you do not like where you are, and you don't feel like you're there on purpose at all. You feel like you're there on accident. You did not intend to be there. You ended up at Murray State because your parents said, that is the best school that will accept you. You're going there. And now you have 3 roommates driving you crazy who won't clean up the dishes after themselves. And you hate every bit of it. And you're like, I can't wait to get out of here. And Jesus would walk in and say, no. There's actually a purpose for you being here. And it would frustrate you to death. Some of you graduated college and you had a whole career plan, and you know who you are, the ones that plan everything out. You knew exactly how it was all going to go, and nothing has gone that way. And I know nothing has gone that way because, well, you're in Murray, and that was not part of your plan. It's a great town, but you were not planning on being here, and now you're here working a job you don't really want to work, doing something you don't even enjoy doing, and it's frustrating you to death. And so it would rub you the wrong way to see Jesus show up, go, hey, actually, you've been strategically and divinely put right here for a reason. But this is what he's communicating, that you are the light of the world, and you are where you are for a very specific reason. God has a purpose in the middle of whatever you're doing right now. And if you miss that, then you will miss your opportunity to bring light to a place that needs light. Which is why he gives us a second metaphor. He goes on, he says, neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on a stand. It gives light to everyone in the house. Now, you know the purpose of light. I don't have to explain this to you. The purpose of light is never to draw attention to itself. You go home and you flip a light on because the purpose of light is to bring attention to all the other things around it. Light shows off something or someone. You have never once, I'm pretty certain, you have never once turned on a light and just spent the next hour staring at that light going, that's amazing. You don't do that. Now, some of you have seen light fixtures that you thought were amazing, but that wasn't the light. The light was illuminating the fixture, or the light was illuminating what was in the room, or the light was illuminating the person in the room. That is the whole purpose of light. A light that brought attention to itself would not make any sense. No, the whole purpose of light is to shine light, to illuminate the things around it. And if you ever saw a light that was covered up, you'd go, that makes no sense at all. There's no value to that light if it's not illuminating what's around it. And that was Jesus' point. When we fight so hard to avoid the purpose that God has for why we are where we are, it's like we're covering up the light. We're missing the whole point of why we are where we are, doing what he called us to do. And so he takes these two metaphors, these two principles of, okay, you've been placed where you are for a purpose, and your job there is to shine a light. He takes those two ideas and he explains what it means for you to be, for me to be, the light of the world. He goes on and he says, in the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. Now, this word see is important, because what Jesus is saying is shining your light, being a light, is an external thing, not an internal thing. Let me explain what I mean by that. If you have a moment during the week where you're just so frustrated, or you feel so disconnected, or you're trying to get guidance and you just don't know what to do, you're anxious, and you decide, I'll tell you what, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to open up my Bible. I'm going to turn everything off, just open up my Bible and I'm going to read. Or I'm going to pray for a minute. And you have this moment, it just makes you feel better, and maybe you feel a sense, okay, I think I know what I'm supposed to do right now. That is wonderful. But you are not being a light in that moment. That is entirely internal. Or if you have one of those moments where you're like, oh, this was such a hard day, I just need some inspiration. And I cannot remember the name of that song they sang at church for anything, but golly, I would like to hear that. And at first you're like, do they make Christian radio? I don't know. I'll go to Spotify, And you start searching, or you go to YouTube and you find it and you play that thing, and it just makes you feel so much better. Wonderful. Happy for you. That is not being a light. And as much as I hate to admit it, when you show up here on Sunday and you sit down and you listen to me for 30 minutes, hopefully it's helpful to you. That's certainly the goal. You are not being a light during this time, because everything that's happening in those moments is happening internally. Lights are external. They're never internal. So what Jesus is trying to help us understand is, if you follow him, you have been placed where you are for a very specific purpose, to let your light shine in such a way that people see your good deeds. And it puts the spotlight not on you, because lights don't attract attention to themselves. It puts the spotlight on your Father in heaven. Or to say it another way, when God looks at you and where you are right now and what you're doing in your life and in your world, God sees you differently than you see yourself. From God's point of view, you are an influential. You're influential. You're an influencer. You're like a light. And when you put your light on something, it attracts everyone's attention to it. You know what you call that? You call that influence. That's what you call it. And so all Jesus was trying to help us understand is that if we follow him, we have this extraordinary opportunity as we go throughout our day. It's not happening right here, right now. No, this is happening at school tomorrow, at work on Tuesday, in your neighborhood, at the club meeting you go to, whatever the thing is, the ball game, whatever the thing is you got going on. That wherever you walk, and whatever you do, you can be influential in those moments, because you have a light that can put a spotlight on someone bigger than and beyond yourself. That you can live your life in such a way that people see what you do, and they don't pat you on the back and say, oh, that was a really good thing to do. Thanks for doing that. You're such a good person. No, it's bigger than that. that it actually helps them to see how much Jesus loves them because you are loving them just like Jesus has loved you. Now, this isn't normal stuff, okay? And I'm not trying to denigrate anything, but odds are if tomorrow you decide I'm going to be a light, I'm going to hold this door for them as they go through. That's being kind. Please do that. But you don't have to be a Christian to do that. Like anybody will do that, okay? That's not what I'm talking about. We're talking about the kind of good deeds that only Jesus followers would do. We're talking about when you see somebody hurting and you go the extra mile to care for them. And the extra mile is a mile where everybody else is like, I can't believe they're giving them that much time. I can't believe they're listening for that long. I can't believe they're showing up and going the extra mile to help in this way. That's what it looks like to let your light shine. It's when you care for that person and listen to that person that nobody wants to listen to because if they start, well, set your clock. It's 2.5 hours before they're done. You know what I'm talking about? So no, everybody avoids them. But you're going to love them. It's when you see somebody who needs encouragement and you go above and beyond to try to provide it. It's when you see somebody who needs care and you do things that, quite honestly, don't make sense or reasonable to do just to make sure they're cared for. It's when you give and you serve and you love, not like normal people. It's when you push yourself to the side and you say, no, I'm going to make serving who I am, not just what I do every now and then. I'm going to make serving who I am. I'm always looking for ways to serve somebody else, even if it costs me. I'm going to be the kind of person that makes generosity a priority. I'm just going to pick a percentage of my money, and the first thing I'm going to do with that percentage is give it to help other people, not myself. Now, that's unusual. Americans don't do that. You know what we Americans do. We give spontaneously. We give when there's a need in a really good Sarah McLachlan song. Then we're like, oh, okay, I guess I should send them $5. You know, that Americans are real quick to be like, oh, I don't have any, I can't help you right now. I don't have enough money, but I'll pray for you. That's what Americans do. No. When people see you being intentional with your money to give it away to help somebody else, and you do that consistently, now that'll get somebody's attention. That doesn't make sense to them. When you love people, that they know that person wouldn't do the same back to them. Okay, now that gets somebody's attention. This isn't everyday, normal American kind of stuff. When Jesus said, let your light shine so they'll see your good deeds, he was saying, I want you to let your light shine by loving people the exact same way I love you, by caring for people the same way I care for you, by serving people the same way I serve you, by giving to people like I gave to you. So, if you're a Jesus follower, here's what I would invite you to do. What if this week you actually pay attention to the opportunities to let your light shine? You actually pay attention to the opportunities to partner with God and serve somebody that way, love somebody that way, give to somebody that way. What if you look for the opportunities to push yourself to the side and to do what normal, rational people would not do, to go the extra mile? You'll let your light shine right where you are. And that light will not draw attention to you. You will be putting a spotlight on your Heavenly Father and the love He has shown you that you're now demonstrating in return to others. What if that's why you are where you are? Because there's somebody who needs a light. And you may not even know it. You may not see it. But by being a light, you just might change everything for them. Now, if you're not a follower of Jesus, listen. When Jesus said, I'm the light, this is exactly what he meant. He's saying, I came to be the light and I came to be the way. I came to show you who God is and what he's like and to make it as simple for you as possible to connect with him. That's what Jesus' death and resurrection was all about. And for you, you don't have a light to share in the way we're talking about until you first experience the love, grace, and forgiveness of Jesus for yourself. You got to know the light to share the light. But the beauty is we all get it the same way. There's no way to earn it. It's just telling Jesus, I'm ready for it. I want to follow you. I need your forgiveness. I need your light. And he promises to give it freely. And then you can be like all of us who are not any better than you. The only difference is when we begin following Jesus, we get a gift from Jesus that I have alluded to today. He says, I promise to put my spirit inside of you. And now I'm going to empower you and enable you to love people like I love you. You can't do it on your own. And I'm going to empower you to serve people like I've served you. You can't do that on your own. I'm going to empower you to give to people like I give to you. Because you can't do it on your own. But his spirit helps us to be the light. So, if you follow Jesus, you're the light of your workplace, your school, your team, your club, your neighborhood. So this week, let your light shine in such a way that they see your good deeds, and it just puts a spotlight on your Father in heaven. Let me pray for us. Father, would you help us to be aware, because we're just so busy and we're so caught up in ourselves. So make us aware this week. Help us to be aware of the purpose you have for why we are where we are. And for some of us, it's frustrating because we don't want to be where we are. But in spite of that, help us to look for where you're at work and how you want to work through us in the middle of that situation. And then help us to be the light. Not like normal American light, but help us to love people the way you love us. And we need your Spirit's help to do that. So make us aware, help us pay attention. And when we're scared to do it or we're trying to talk ourselves out of it, help us to take the opportunity anyway and to go the extra mile for someone this week. That's in your name we pray. Amen.